A concerning update to our ongoing KCRA3 investigation, Dignity Delayed. Last week, we told you exclusively about the third missing persons case linked to a Dignity Health hospital and its backlog of human remains.
A lawsuit just filed reveals more disturbing allegations. KCRA3 investigates Lizzie Mitri has been combing through the documents. Lizzie, what did you find?
Curtis, the lawsuit claims not only did the hospital fail to notify Tanya Walker's family after she died, it alleges the hospital actually donated Walker's organs even though she wasn't an organ donor. At 51 years old, Tanya Walker died at Dignity Health's Mercy General Hospital in November 2023. But the family says the hospital never notified them and didn't issue a death certificate until 5 months later. So the family and detectives searched for Walker all that time. Now the family says they're suing.
They need to be held to task for the absolute nightmare that families are living who do not know if their family members are dead or alive.
The lawsuit also alleges that Dignity unilaterally made the decision to make Walker an organ donor and then without any permission whatsoever harvested her eyes and tissue. On top of Dignity Health, the family is suing the offsite morgue that Dignity has been contracting with to store bodies for months or even years after patient deaths. It's more commonly known as cremations only, but the official business is Mortuary Support Services of Northern California. It's owned by Michael Robert Lofton. The lawsuit alleges the company failed to properly store Walker's remains by failing to embalm her body and refrigerate it at the appropriate temperature. It also states a permit is required by law to store a body for more than 8 calendar days, and that the company held Walker's body for 5.5 months before finally getting that permit. We did reach out, and the attorneys for Lofton and his business say this is a very unfortunate situation. However, they say their client disputes that it has any liability in this matter, and they intend to vigorously defend any claims against it. Another thing that stuck out to us, this lawsuit claims the Sacramento County District Attorney is now investigating. The office wouldn't confirm that to us, saying it doesn't comment on what it is or is not investigating, but that would be a big development because up to now, state regulators have known about this, and they have taken no enforcement action.
So, Lizzie, we know you've been reaching out to the state about this, about a history of issues with Dignity hospitals. What's the latest from the Department of Public Health on this?
Right. We've been requesting records. Back in February, CDPH was supposed to send us documents from a 2022 inspection of Mercy San Juan within 14 days. We've reached out multiple times on that and haven't heard back, so we're still waiting.
Yeah, and I know you'll continue to press them for more information on this. Lizzie, thank you so much for looking into that.
And we're going to continue to follow this issue closely. KCRA3 Investigates has learned in nearly 24 cases, death certificates from Dignity Health hospitals have been delayed for more than a year. Our team is keeping track of all of the cases they've uncovered.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you are watching this video. I came across the story yesterday of Tanya Walker. Never heard this story. I live in California and I never heard of this story. Maybe it's just the news down in Sacramento, but this happened over like 2 years ago. Tanya Walker went missing back in November of 2023, and they found her body 7 months later in 2024 because the sheriff noticed that the DMV marked her as deceased. So that's how they found her in the morgue 7 months later, after she died November 2nd, 2023 of cardiac arrest. Tanya Walker's family last heard from her in October 2023. The mother of 4 had been unhoused at times, but had never been out of contact before, much less vanished without a trace. When she was nowhere to be found, as Thanksgiving neared, her loved ones launched an exhaustive search for the 51-year-old throughout Sacramento, California, where she lived. The events that unfolded, however, were beyond anything they could have imagined. And at the center of the tragedy was Dignity Health, one of the latest healthcare systems in the U.S. Yes, my sister-in-law, she goes with Dignity Health out here in Northridge. Ooh, that's so scary. And that one is like new, and they're building them everywhere here in the valley. The investigation officially began on November 10th when Tanya's family reported her missing to the police. Her sisters, Daly Morris and Khalid Zachary, soon jumped into action, distributing hundreds of flyers, searching roadside ditches, and even crawling through storm drains to find her, all while offering a $3,500 reward for information, which unfortunately led to many false leads. And yes, I have seen Daleen Morris in people's comments stating, "Thank you for telling the story," and being appreciative of people telling her sister's story because this story was never out there and they're trying to sweep this under the rug. Not ruling out a homicide, the police used a cadaver dog and alerted the Justice Department, requesting they added her to the National Missing Persons List. A break in the case did not come until May 2024, 7 months later, when the DOJ noticed she had been marked deceased by the DMV. A sheriff's deputy told the family they had finally found Tanya's body on a shelf in a morgue located on the outskirts of Sacramento. When her sisters arrived at cremations only to identify her remains, nothing could have prepared them for what they saw. Walker was missing her eyes and skin, her family told the outlet. We identified her through the tattoo on her arm. Her body was in the worst condition you can imagine. Her face looked like someone put battery acid all on her face. It was a what the F moment. They tried to convince us not to see her, but we weren't going anywhere. We've been searching for her for months, the sister said. The family claims that in addition to the failing to notify the family of her passing, the hospital didn't bother to issue a death certificate until 5 months later. The hospital didn't, what's more, her body had been harvested for organs, even though she had never been agreed to be a donor. Tanya's family eventually discovered she died way back in November 2nd of cardiac arrest in Mercy General Hospital after being admitted 2 days earlier on Halloween for hypertension, hypothermia, and other symptoms. Surprisingly, the hospital had an address on file for her, which was a home in Sacramento that she sometimes shared with her adult son, yet no one was alerted. California-based medical nonprofit is now facing a civil lawsuit filed by Tanya's family, who allege gross negligence and intentional infliction of emotional distress. It is one of dozens of lawsuits against Dignity Health over the mishandling of bodies. Tanya's lawsuit also names the mortuary owner Michael Lofton, claiming he was responsible for gross negligence for failing to store her remains properly. Yeah, they said that they just bombed her and put her in a freezer for 5 months. Earlier in 2023, the case of Jesse Peterson followed a similar pattern according to a civil lawsuit. Jesse was admitted to a nearby Sacramento hospital owned by Dignity Health for a diabetic episode, and her decomposed remains were finally found months later in the same warehouse, cremations only. Her suit alleges that dozens of other patients' unidentified bodies were held for months or even years at this off-site facility. Even before Tanya's tragedy, Dignity Health was under intense scrutiny for losing bodies. The California Department of Public Health audited the multi-billion-dollar behemoth in 2022 and 2023. However, the then president claimed they assumed the remains being stored did not have families, according to the San Francisco Gate. That assumption certainly led to heartache for Tanya's family, who searched high and low for months. This final image of Tanya is now ingrained in Khalid and Dali's minds as the last image of her beloved sister. It will haunt them forever. That is so sad. How can you just assume that someone doesn't have family and you know they have an address on file for them? This is negligence on their part. I hope that Tanya's family will win the lawsuit, and also Jesse, the white woman family, will win the lawsuit as well. And uh, I know it's too late to get back her organs because I know they gave it to somebody who had the, the means to get, the organs up front. But this is a very sad, tragic story. How they hid this for months, and I'm glad their sisters, her sisters, put it out there that they needed their sister to come home and that there are loved ones with these people looking for these people. This is so sad. And she was a mother of four adult children. And they just discarded her like trash. Put her in an unmarked warehouse for months. If the family wasn't even looking for her, they probably left her there for years, like the others. Probably cremated her. This is sad. They tore off her skin. Her skin. They gorged her eyes out. This is just beyond evil. Beyond evil. They got no consent for this. And they just did it anyway. Because the president said she has no loved ones. Which is a cock-a-bull now. And I hope that they shut down and these lawsuits take everything they have. This is disgusting. Poor lady. You didn't deserve that, Tanya. None. Not even Jamie. Or Jesse. Sorry, Jesse deserved that. This is heartbreaking for both of them and all the people who are identified. But hell, what do I know? I'm just a talking head. Have a great day, YouTube.
Have you guys heard the story regarding Tanya Walker? She was missing back in October 2023. Mother of four. At times, she was homeless, but she never lost contact with her family. Then all of a sudden, she vanished without a trace. Now, listen, this is something that we have been talking about for years. How our bodies are being harvested, things are being illegally done at hospitals and all that stuff, like Dignity Health up in Sacramento, California. You see, that's where Tanya Walker lived. She went to the hospital for whatever reason, and all of a sudden, she disappeared. Now, the investigation into her disappearance didn't start till like November the 10th of that same year, when her family reported her missing to the police. Then her sisters, they jumped into action and put boots on the ground, started passing out flyers, searching roadsides and all that stuff, man. And then the police, they didn't rule out homicide. So they used cadaver dogs. They alerted the Justice Department asking, can they go ahead and list her on the missing persons list? And then a break in the case came May of 2024. That was like 7 months later, when the DOJ had noticed that she had been marked deceased by the DMV. So the sheriff, being diligent, he put boots on the ground. He was faithful to this. And he told the family that they found her body. And it was on a shelf in a morgue located on the outskirts of Sacramento. And I truly believe that a lot of missing persons right now are up there. I'm personally thinking about Corey Daniely. Is his body there? But when the family got there, this is hard. When the family got there, they noticed that her eyes and her skin was missing. You heard me correctly. Now, tattoos go deep into the tissue, right? That's the only way they were able to identify her, from a tattoo that was on her arm. They didn't notify the family. They had her address and knew her address and knew that she had a son. They never contacted anybody at all. And what makes it worse is they harvested her organs, even though she never agreed to that, to be a donor. Now, if Dignity Health sounds familiar, it's the same hospital back in 2023 where they did the same thing to Jessie Peterson. She went in for a diabetic episode and then never came out. And her body was found in the same exact warehouse, an off-site facility. Now, I've already reached out to several families that I did a call to action for in those areas and told them to get with that sheriff and ask that sheriff to do a search to find their family member. I'll bring you more. This is totally sad, but we've been trying to tell y'all this stuff has really been happening.
This isn't just another headline. It's the living nightmare of Tanya Walker's family. Back in November of 2023, the 51-year-old Sacramento mom vanished. Her sisters searched everywhere, drains, ditches, train tracks, until July 31st, 2024, when they got the unthinkable call. A deputy said a body was found in a morgue. Imagine entering that cold warehouse, hoping for closure, and then seeing your sister's lifeless form, missing eyes, stripped skin, looked as if she never mattered. They say that Dignity Health assumed homeless patients had no families. That callous mindset left Tanya's body unclaimed, unlabeled, and eventually harvested for organs without consent. But Tanya is not the only one. At Mercy San Juan, Tony Peterson's mother, Jessie, died after a diabetic emergency and was pronounced discharged. Over a year later, she was discovered in a warehouse morgue. Her remains too decayed for funeral viewing or even an autopsy. The California Department of Public Health audits in 2022 and 23 flagged the hospitals for tragic repeated failures, missing death certificates, delayed family notification, botched morgue protocols, yet regulators deemed the chain compliant. These families aren't just angry, they're shattered. They've endured months of agonizing searches, falling prey to scammers before the truth surfaced. Their loved ones were in institutional limbo. Now they're suing for gross negligence and intentional emotional trauma. One suit has already settled, others are moving forward, but no criminal charges exist. So what's emerged looks like a systemic bias. Vulnerable patients, homeless, transient, were treated as disposable. Bodies stored in warehouses like lost items. Families left in limbo. Hospitals hiding behind assumptions instead of accountability. And Dignity Health? They insist it was an unfortunate misunderstanding. But audits paint a different picture, one of ongoing procedural breakdowns, failed dignity, and human lives reduced to baggage. So this story forces us to ask, can a healthcare system still call itself caring when it loses the body of a loved one, when it blames poverty instead of fixing protocols? It's more than negligence. This is a breach of humanity. So for Tanya, Jessie, and others, a name on a shelf should have meant compassion, respect, and truth. Instead, it became another tragedy hidden behind hospital walls. The lawsuits press on, families demand transparency, and the public must hold these institutions to account, because no one should suffer this type of neglect or die without dignity.
It's for my Black Americans, my FBAs, Indigenous Americans, Aboriginal Americans. While they want us fighting amongst brown and brown people, we need to be understanding that, baby, organ donor or not, they are illegally harvesting our organs. Did you hear the story about Tony Walker? She was missing for months. Her family did a search. They had put out rewards. The police were looking for her. To find out, she had been dead for months and was in a Sacramento hospital, and they said she was in cardiac arrest. Baby, when they went to find or to view her body, she was missing her eyes, she was missing her skin. No, it told you she died in the hospital from cardiac arrest. They harvested her organs. She was not an organ donor, and this is becoming a thing. We are not organ donors, but they are taking our organs. So while you guys want to argue amongst Africans who sold motherfuckers, never looked back, fuck them niggas. I know we are all brown, but right now, on American soil, where they are harvesting Black American organs. They are allowing us to, they are not giving us the proper care so that they can harvest our organs.
Look up Tanya Walker. Look her up. Tanya Walker. Tanya Walker. Yeah, Black woman went missing in 2023. They found her body in the morgue without her organs and her skin. They are doing it still. What are we doing? They're stealing our melanin. They're stealing our organs. Black market, excuse me. And now we're supposed to act as if none of this shit is happening. What we doing? What we doing? What we doing? How you doing?